Hey, what's going on, guys? Let's do a market video on a few things. First of all, in terms of taking a big look on the long-term charts of the markets, the S&Ps, the Qs, and then breaking it down in terms of the sectors, right? So what we have on here is the weekly chart. What we'll have on here is the moving averages, where the red line is the long-term moving averages, showing the long-term investors where their bias is, and the green ones are the short moving averages, right? So looking at the S&P 500, looking at the spotters, I mean, first things first. I mean, if you look on the bigger picture, I mean, this market just has been on a tear, right? If you look from here, it went from 188 all the way to 290, so about 110, 100 points move, and so on. But what we are looking at on the based on the market structure on here, if you try to break it down over here, right? A few things first. First of all, if you look at the long-term investors, I mean, they are fairly still bullish. There is no bias in terms of for them to cash out. I mean, I don't see any tightness of the moving averages, right? There's no tightness. I mean, there is still a lot of long-term buyers sitting in there. And in terms of the short term, the market structure just based on price, a couple of things you will take a look at. Let's take a look at this. Right, so if you watch this, I mean the price broke over this 280 level. After all this hoopla from 280 to 260, a big 20-point move, went sideways from what beginning of the year, right? We had a big correction, went pretty much sideways, and right now we are just going floating up, right? There's no panic in the market, right? The long-term investors are still invested in here, and the short-term investors are still looking good. So as long as the price holds over 280, it looks pretty good. One of the things you can take a look at, and hey, you know what? How is this moving average really going to tell me? Are the people really willing to buy or sell? Uh, Let me take a look on this. Say, let me pull up a 20-year weekly. Right. So if you look on the 20-year weekly chart, let's see before all this which happened over here. If you break down on these moving averages, right? So I mentioned the red ones are the long-term moving averages. So what I really don't want to see for moving averages with the long-term moving averages is when you see these tightness, right? When you see these tightness is when you'll see a lot of panic in the market and you see big downward gyrations, right? What you will notice, two things. Number one is whenever it's whenever you see the prices generally under the long-term moving averages, the red one, you will see usually big panics, right? Generally, when it's above it, you will usually see a nice move to the upside. Right now, trying to determine which panics to buy and which not to buy, just look at this, right? I mean, you see nice spread on the long-term investors. So any pullback over here, it will automatically tells you short-term buyers. I mean, you definitely want to buy if you want to buy the dip, the short-term is coming in. But the long-term investors, right? We take a close look over here. These are the differences between the long-term moving averages, which is the long-term investors. I mean, there's really no panic in them, so it's a good time to buy this pullback over here, right? The other way you look at is this one, the same thing. It pulled back nicely over here. Still long bias is still strong, so we can just keep on buying this. Um, right. So if you keep on buying these breakouts, right, all these breakouts that you see, nice pullbacks, right? So if you want to find a trending market, that's what you really do. You just keep on buying the breakouts, right? You keep on buying these flags, right? And then you see the sideways consolidation, a nice pullback again. So a lot of movement, but whenever you see the tightness happening, right? What you don't want to see in the markets right now is something like this. The tightness happens, that's the time you really want to get out and reevaluate where the markets are going to be. Right? This tightness over here in this region, what you see over here, is what you do not want to see over here. Right? So right now we are seeing a nice trend up move. Right? So any dip can be bought. So that's what we see on here right now. So these long-term moving averages works out really well. So yeah. So let me just remove all this. So this is on the broad S&P 500, right? If you want to take a look at the Qs, same thing. You pull up the Qs on here. Qs look pretty extended as well, but if you look on the long-term investors using the long-term bias over here, really no panic down here yet. Breaking it down in terms of the sectors. First, we look at the S&P healthcare. right? So healthcare is a pretty big one. We saw this big panic down here, but now if you see, we just after it looks pretty similar to the S&P 500, right? We broke over this level. Now you see a nice trend up. So if you look at the long term, there's really no people wanting to sell, right? Um, Next, we look at the S&P Energy, which is usually a drag on the markets. Nothing much to do over here, just moving on sideways, right? You see all this crisscross, so nothing going on. One thing that you will notice is I did have this up move, but since then, just a sideways crap. Consumer discretionary, something the Amazons and all is all sitting in here, right? Discretionary money being spent. So, I mean, the long-term bias is still up. I mean, all these moving averages are trending to the upside. Really no panic in the market yet. Right? Let's look at the financials. Financials has been an easy-go-lucky pullback down here, right? So chances are there is no panic in the markets yet on the S&P 500 financials. Telecom is really just about value playing, so right now it's not doing anything. Consumer staples, which is where you see the big Procter & Gamble's, Johnson & Johnson, not really doing much over here. We don't really expect for it to do anything when the markets are really ripping, right? Materials is a sector which is really going sideways. Don't really know which way it's going to go, but if the markets are strong, chances are it's going to go on the higher side. You see tightness over here, not as much, but you still see a lot of gaps over here. So bias is still long unless proven wrong. S&P Industrials pretty strong on here, right? Had this nice tightness down here. Now we are moving up to on the high side. So let's see how this plays out. Utilities, once again, nice trend. And then the information technology, right? This is where all the big ones are sitting in here. So no panic on here, right? As we went through a whole bunch of charts on here, just no panic. The other thing I want to break down is in terms of the FANG stocks. So first thing first, look at Facebook. What you'll notice on here on Facebook is we are seeing, after a big down move on here, we are seeing panic, right? What you don't see on here is really a lot of tightness going on, right? You don't see tightness. I mean, what this one looks like is really something like this, right? We try to zoom this on here, right? Which is with the moving averages, if they don't really, the long-term moving averages don't really cross over, what it really means is generally is a good opportunity to buy, right? Something like this, if you try to zoom in, you don't really see the tightness in here, right? You see some tightness in here, but you don't really see it crisscrossing. So bias is still long for now. Not the best one out there though. If you want to look at, say, Amazon, right? So Amazon has been on a tear, nice moving averages, trending on the upside, really nothing to do on here. It is pretty extended over here if you're looking to buy it. And then you look at the Netflix. So once again, the bias on Netflix is still on the long side, nice long-term moving averages. Now we just want to have a sideways action before it starts trending back up. If you look on the Googles, right, so once again, nice uptrend move. Now we are going back to support over here. Now, if I'm trying to determine really which name to play for a bounce next week, just going through the stocks, clearly Facebook is not really the one to play. Sorry about that. Facebook is really not the name that you want to go and play the bounce, right? It's not set up on the weekly. Definitely not Amazon as well, because Amazon is kind of pretty extended over here. Pretty nothing to do over here. Google. Google. See, the good thing about Google chart on here, if you look on it, long term, we know the bias is to the long side. Right? What we are seeing on here is it's coming back right on this side. Right? So this was acting as resistance before. Now you're slowly coming back, and then chances are it can act support. Right? If you break it down to the daily level, see, this is what it is. Right? So we are coming back to the daily level. Chances are, if this level holds, you can see a nice trend back up, right? If you look on the if somebody, let's say somebody is trying to short this name of Google, right? What they are seeing on here, lower highs. Pull up this chart. What they are trying to find on here is this, right? Lower highs, lower lows, right? So they're trying to play this pattern over here on the downside. But if you look on the bigger picture, it's doing nothing but just pulling back to the resistance will turn support as long as the markets are holding. So chances are I want to be looking for long bias on this thing on a 30-minute chart. And really want things to hold over here. Let's see if I can have a long-term chart. Let's say 20-day, 30-minute chart, right? So we are down here. I mean, if you want to use these moving averages in the higher time frame, the way you can really look at it is for the stock to break over this moving average and for it to hold and then play to the long side, right? That's something which I will be looking for next week to see if it has the potential to break over these moving averages, and so something like this, right? It breaks over, come down, so there's nothing much to do over here, to do over here, right? So it comes back, holds, forms a higher high, and then you see then this nice rip from 1220 to 1240 comes back. Right? So Google is the name to look forward to next week out of the FANG stocks. If you have any questions, guys, let me know. My email is swatchlist@gmail.com. If you do like the video, please like and subscribe. It keeps me motivated to make more for you.